capes, and conundrums. He wasn't bothering to keep track of whose date he was supposedly on. All three of them had agreed to work together, and to be frank, they have good ideas. Their scheme to make Skathak a home rather than just a posting is a good one. The picnic had been a fair little affair, occasionally interrupted by little leapers getting over everything, but they avoided the food as the little things were herbivores with an enormous sweet tooth and jaws so weak they're more likely to hang off the flesh of an apple via their mouth than tear a piece out. A banana, freshly peeled, might be soft enough for the little things. Maybe. An overripe pear ready to fall apart might also be soft enough. As it is, while they eat surrounded by softly glowing purple flowers, and then swarmed by little leapers whenever they pause long enough to convince the little creatures the coast is clear, which is one of the major reasons for a sort of mutual silence in the meal. The tiny, harmless things that can fit 3 or 4 to a palm are incredibly endearing. Their almost bird status has them hopping around with ease, and the slight chittering noises they make are interesting. They also get an answer as to why they're drawn to Santiago's laughter. After a little while, if they're certain they're safe, a few of them will give off low-pitched barks, and a dozen of the little leapers barking in sync is at roughly the same pitch and pace he chuckles at. Of course, the visits from the tiny things never last long. There's always something that spooks them, and the longest they have the little fellows around is 10 minutes, and it takes until the 8-minute mark before the call of safety goes up. But having it done properly by the little leapers themselves is apparently far better than his own inadvertent call as they go from flock to swarm. Everything is being poked into, everything is being explored, and every flower is being drunk from. It's quite the experience to have 2 little creatures preening at each other's sparse feathers while balanced on your fingers. Nothing lasts forever, though, and the sound of something cuts through the night air and causes the little leapers to scatter without hesitation. Of course, they have predators. They're small herbivores, walking snacks for anything bigger than a mouse with a taste for meat. So this is my date wrapping up. Want to head to the next one, or are we taking a break between them? Darkscream asks, and Santiago can't help but chuckle, which brings out the little leapers, and something blurs for them. He moves and his fingers wrap around the neck of a diving bird that starts squawking and protesting its rough treatment. The little leapers are already gone, and the flying chicken is most upset at the loss of its prey. So what is this? Swoop caller. They give out a distinctive cry if someone approaches their bush-born nests. They're one of the predators of the little leapers, Shadeflight says with an impressed tone in her voice. Clearly she wasn't expecting him to snatch the swoop caller out of the air. It's the unholy son of a rooster and a hawk, with twice the attitude. Santiago notes as the furious creature flaps in his grip and tries to tear at his wrist. He can sense no axiom from it. It's a pure predator that's also the size of a football. He tosses the creature up and away, and instead of flying off to try and find food elsewhere, it comes back to try and claw and peck at him. Not happening, but Santiago is loving the spunk from the creature. After a minute of trying and failing to draw so much as a drop of blood from Santiago, the creature clearly gives it up as a lost cause and flies off with a final, indignant series of clucks and squawks. Well, that was an interesting end to things, Santiago says with a great deal of amusement in his tone. Perhaps we should go before I start laughing at the absurdity of that creature and endanger the little leapers again. Then if you're up for it, care to join us tomorrow for a viewing of the Hunt Falls? They start tomorrow afternoon at 3. Ambush Night offers. I'm not familiar with the term. What are the Hunt Falls? A hollow video compilation of all the failures of hunters, from the stupid to the silly to the downright pathetic. It's a comedy show. Good for just relaxing and laughing. My cousin owns one of the theaters, and since I've helped with the paperwork and accounting more than once, I've got an open invitation to grab a plus-size couch whenever I feel like it. Ambush Night explains even as they all quickly wrap up the remains of the picnic. "It sounds like a good time," Santiago says with a smile. He's not entirely certain what the pace for this will be. Do they want him now? Later? Did they expect him to suddenly start proclaiming his love for them out of nowhere? He doesn't normally struggle with people, but a very different people with very different morals and ideals can still trip him up. Just how do they want these dates to go, as he very much wants them to have a good time as well? It feels selfish if he's the only one not going home disappointed. So, he begins as they head their way back to the reinforced and thermally protected air car they drove out here. I've been pretty caught up in my duties to the Undaunted since emerging from cruel space. So I'm not quite sure how to most appropriately end this first date. Most dates I had back on Earth was my doing everything I could to impress a woman and always ending up with less than I hoped or wanted, and I don't like the idea of disappointing you three. "Oh, we've impressed you that much?" Shadeflight asks. "All three of you, with no formal training whatsoever, have proven yourselves in many different ways. You're also clearly not letting your hormones run wild and are being respectful, so I have no reason to argue against things myself." "But is it a good match?" Ambush Night asks. "Oh, a lot of girls just want romance or don't care about the romance and just want sex. But sometimes it's more than that, so that's what we're going for. It's, I think the problem is that you've been expecting the more eager and boisterous part of the galaxy. They're the types to jump on any man in order to be part of a family and get started on their own, or are reckless and prone to just jumping in on things. So of course you'd meet far more of them than anything else. You've been thinking about this. We've had to. You're a soldier, but you're also an actor. You put on personas. For a lot of soldiers, you can meet them once and know them as a person fairly clearly. But you're, if not trained, then at least good at acting. So it takes longer to get to know you. But I'm liking what I see so far. And what I see is someone who wants a harmonious family in his future, which means we take this slow, we take this carefully, and both you and we get what you want and everyone wins." Shadeflight says, "Personally, I'd like to just jump in myself, but if waiting is what's needed to really make it work, then I'm willing to wait," Darkscream says before letting out a laugh. "All right, so that's 2 of 3 so far?" "Ambush Night?" Santiago asks, and she seems thoughtful. "I've always been the wait-and-see type. You need to be considerate in corporate culture even if you take out all the office politics," she says and then considers. "So, while a fun, freaky thing built on sex would be fun, something with a stronger base or a more stable source will mean a happier marriage. There are enough examples of things being rushed or a relationship not being cared for well enough that it just falls apart and becomes a long, banal trek into misery, or it just becoming an obligation and nothing more. This sounds like something you've... My own mother's relationship. She's on the cooler side of things, and it's just an obligation. Resources for father's seed, basically. I barely got a chance to meet him and never really forged a relationship," she explains, and Santiago reaches out and puts a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asks, and she sighs. "It's nothing new, don't worry, just... It would be nice to know that my father could pick me out of a police lineup," she says, and he nods. "And that's what I'd like to avoid. Family matters, and if you're all willing to build, then so am I," Santiago says. "Isn't this still really quick by human standards?" Darkscream asks in amusement. From the man's side of things, it's usually the woman saying no or holding it back. It's kind of funny just how weirdly matched up things are with humans and the rest of the galaxy, with men trying to impress women on Earth and with women trying to impress men in the rest of the galaxy. It's no real surprise that everyone's just running into things at Olympic speeds. Olympic? Oh, the Olympic Games are... Santiago begins to explain. "Isn't it an athletic competition that used to be an act of worship that's now a worldwide competition?" Shadowflight asks, and Santiago can't help but chuckle and then nods. A little leaper lets out a bunch of squeaks as it aborts its jump and then vanishes into the turf. "Hey, goofy little creatures," Santiago notes. They quickly get into the air car and take off with ease. We have a warning here. Some of the lava serpents are climbing higher for some reason," Ambush Knight says as she reads off the display. "Really? How close is it?" Santiago asks, looking out the window. "It's not, but a quick kill team has been dispatched in order to take it out before it can get to the surface." "Which reminds me, what's going to be the side effect of that blast wave earlier today?" he asks. "It went the other way entirely. There's actually ashfall over where the little silvers were, and before tomorrow there will be rain there too," Ambush Knight says, and Santiago nods. They drop him off at the undaunted blimp and head out for later, and he waves them goodbye. None of them had moved for a kiss. None of them have even hinted at it. It felt interesting. It had been different from what he'd been expecting and had liked that a great deal. "So did you fill out Form 18523 in the Sexual Deviations Requisition State?" Robin says the moment the door out of the parking level opens. "How long have you been waiting there?" Santiago asks, ignoring the sheer gibberish about false paperwork. "About 3 minutes. So how'd it go?" "Those are weird-looking lipstick markings all over you." Robin teases further. "They're footprints. It was a picnic on the fertile parts of the world, complete with small animals examining us closely. These are their footprints." "And the scratching around your sleeve?" Robin asks, and Santiago decides to have some fun. "Choking chicken," he says, and Robin snorts. "Right in front of them? I didn't see any reason why not." "That's a weird fetish." "Well, protecting the innocent by strangling a cock can impress," Santiago says with a straight face, and Robin outright snorts and then breaks down in some chuckles. Okay, I cracked. What actually happened?" "I accidentally left some of the small creatures around us exposed to a predator that seemed like the most literal definition of a chicken hawk I've ever seen, and had to hold it off for a bit. The fact I caught a diving predator bird with one hand was impressive, I guess." "So there hasn't been any tearing of clothes or swooning of ladies?" Robin asks. "We're taking our time to make a proper relationship. It's not rush in, lock it down, and then sort it all out afterwards. We're getting everything straight up front instead." "Ah, that's both very wholesome and very boring on the gossip front." "You're not a fishwife. Drop the gossip. Relax, I'm just yanking your chain, but you should clean up. Whatever that stuff on you is, you don't know if someone will or won't have an allergic reaction to it or something like that," Robin says. "I will, don't worry. Has anything happened while I was out?" "Councilwoman Knox has been going over the videos of the tests, and she seems to like it, but she wants things to mimic the local buildings a little more." "That shouldn't be too hard. It wasn't the actually shape of the tests, but the substance of the tests that mattered." "Yup, so that's easy enough to accommodate. Now," Robin begins before an alarm goes off on his communicator. They want me to look over more forms. Excuse me. Good luck with the next date." "I don't need luck. I'm me. That's all that luck could possibly manage. There is no doing better than that," Santiago protests as Robin walks away, and he gets a wave and a laugh in return.